In late December 1964, the local government abruptly imposed a curfew, claiming a massive storm was imminent. Police cars patrolled the town, their loudspeakers blaring warnings and urging everyone to retreat indoors for safety. Strangely, the sky remained clear, with no sign of an approaching storm. Unease spread among the townspeople as the weather stayed calm. Tension rose when law enforcement began aggressively enforcing the curfew, forcibly escorting reluctant individuals to their homes. Whispers of something more sinister began to circulate. Rumors surfaced about a strange creature sighted around town and in the surrounding woods. The sightings multiplied, with dozens of residents reporting encounters with the eerie being. The mounting reports of this creature, combined with the government's uncharacteristic severity, fueled a growing suspicion. Was the storm merely a cover for something far more disturbing? The town was scared. They didn't trust the officials and worried about the danger that was out there. That same night, around 3 a.m., the silence was shattered by the sound of several police and government vehicles speeding down one of the main streets. Curious and fearful residents peeked through their windows, speculating that the authorities were transporting the mysterious creature they had warned about. The convoy's urgency and secrecy only deepened the town's anxiety and suspicion. The next day, as the sun rose on a perfectly clear sky, the anticipated storm was nowhere to be seen. The government issued a public apology, claiming that the forecast had been disastrously incorrect and insisting that their only intention was to ensure everyone's safety. They offered no explanation for the aggressive enforcement of the curfew or the strange sightings reported by numerous townspeople. The incident was never officially addressed again, leaving the community with an unsettling sense of mystery and a lingering fear of what might still be lurking in the shadows. In the summer of 1966, something very creepy happened at the McPherson house. The McPherson family was well liked in town. James and Margaret McPherson lived with their 2 children, Emily and Thomas, in a big, old house on the edge of town. The house was old and creaky, but they took good care of it. One stormy night in July, there was a loud knock on the door. James opened it to find a man soaked from the rain. The man said his name was Harold Quinn, and his car had broken down nearby. James invited Harold in to stay until the storm passed. As the storm raged outside, Harold sat with the family, chatting to pass the time. He seemed nice enough, but there was something strange about him. Around midnight, Harold excused himself to use the bathroom. Minutes passed, then an hour, but Harold didn't come back. James went to check on him but found the bathroom empty. Harold was nowhere in the house. The next day, the police told the McPhersons that Harold Quinn had died in a car accident 2 years ago. His grave in the town cemetery was untouched. The family was spooked but tried to move on. However, strange things started happening. Emily and Thomas heard whispers in their rooms, objects moved by themselves, and the house felt cold and eerie. They felt like someone was always watching them. One night, Margaret woke up to hear crying. She found Emily in the hallway, scared and pointing at the attic door. Emily said she saw a man standing there. James grabbed a flashlight and went up to the attic. The room was filled with old things, and in the corner, James saw Harold Quinn. James dropped his flashlight and ran down the stairs, slamming the attic door behind him. The family decided to leave the house and stay with relatives in another town. The McPherson house was left empty. People in town started telling stories about the haunted house and Harold Quinn's ghost. To this day, no one dares to go near the McPherson house at night. Some say that on stormy nights, you can still hear Harold Quinn crying, forever stuck in the old house. In the summer of 1968, a group of college students set out on a road trip through the desolate highways of the American Southwest. Among them was Nancy, a bright and adventurous young woman eager to explore the rugged landscapes of the region. As they journeyed through the vast expanse of desert, the group stumbled upon an old, abandoned gas station in the middle of nowhere. Intrigued by the eerie atmosphere, they decided to stop and explore. The station, weather-beaten and dilapidated, seemed frozen in time, a relic of a bygone era. As Nancy and her friends ventured inside, they were greeted by the musty smell of decay and the faint echo of their footsteps on the dusty floor. Amidst the rusted shelves and broken equipment, they discovered an old photo album its pages yellowed with age. Curiosity piqued, Nancy flipped through the album, revealing a series of black and white photographs depicting the station in its heyday. But as she reached the final pages, her heart skipped a beat. There, staring back at her, was a photograph of the group themselves, taken moments earlier as they had entered the station. Shaken, Nancy showed the photo to her friends, but they dismissed it as a prank or a coincidence. Determined to unravel the mystery, Nancy insisted they leave the station and continue their journey. As night fell and they set up camp in a remote canyon, strange things began to happen. Shadows danced in the flickering firelight, and the distant howl of a coyote sent shivers down their spines. Despite their unease, they tried to reassure themselves that it was just their imagination playing tricks on them. But as the night wore on, their sense of dread only intensified. Whispers seemed to drift on the wind, and eerie figures appeared in the darkness, fleeting glimpses of something unseen. Suddenly, Nancy's friend Jessica let out a blood-curdling scream. Rushing to her side, they found her staring wide-eyed into the darkness, trembling with fear. She claimed to have seen a ghostly figure lurking among the rocks, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Terrified, the group huddled together, their hearts pounding with fear. In the distance, they heard the sound of approaching footsteps, slow and deliberate. With mounting horror, they realized that they were not alone in the canyon. Gathering their courage, they packed up their belongings and fled into the night, leaving behind the abandoned gas station and the mysteries it held. To this day, Nancy and her friends still shudder at the memory of that fateful night, haunted by the ghosts of the desert and the secrets they uncovered in the darkness. In the fall of 1963, a small town in Maine was shaken by a series of strange events centered around the old Holloway farm. The Holloway family had lived on the farm for generations, but by 1963, only old Mrs. Holloway was left. She was a quiet, reclusive woman who rarely left her house. People in town said she was a witch, but most thought she was just a lonely, old lady. One evening, a group of teenagers dared each other to visit the farm. It was Halloween, and they thought it would be fun to scare themselves. The farm was run down, with broken windows and overgrown weeds, looking just like a haunted house from a movie. As they approached the house, they heard strange noises, whispers, footsteps, and the creaking of old wood. The bravest of the group, a boy named Tommy, decided to go inside. The others waited outside, shivering in the cold and dark. Tommy walked through the dusty rooms, his flashlight casting eerie shadows on the walls. In the kitchen, he found an old photograph of the Holloway family. The eyes of the people in the photo seemed to follow him as he moved. Suddenly, he heard a loud thump from upstairs. He slowly climbed the creaky stairs, his heart pounding. When he reached the top, he saw a door slightly ajar at the end of the hallway. Summoning all his courage, he pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was dark, but in the dim light, he could make out a figure standing by the window. It was an old woman, her back turned to him. He called out, "Mrs. Holloway." But there was no answer. The figure slowly turned around, revealing a face twisted in anger and sadness. Her eyes were hollow, and her mouth moved as if she was whispering something, but no sound came out. Terrified, Tommy stumbled back and ran down the stairs. As he reached the front door, he heard a chilling scream echo through the house. He bolted outside, where his friends were waiting. They saw the fear in his eyes and didn't ask any questions. They all ran back to town as fast as they could. The next day, Tommy's friends went to check on him, but he was gone. His parents said he had packed a bag and left a note saying he needed to get away. He was never seen again. People in town still talk about the old Holloway farm and the strange events of that Halloween night. Some say Mrs. Holloway's ghost still roams the halls, looking for her lost family. Others believe that Tommy was taken by her spirit, forever trapped in the old house. In the late summer of 1965, Clara, a young schoolteacher, moved into the old Waverly house on the outskirts of a small Appalachian town. Despite local rumors of the house being haunted, Clara, pragmatic and independent, dismissed these superstitions and settled in, enjoying her new job and the spacious home. For weeks, life was uneventful. However, as October approached, Clara began hearing strange noises, creaking floorboards, faint whispering, and the eerie sensation of being watched. One night, she woke to the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Grabbing a flashlight, she investigated but found nothing. A few nights later, Clara was awakened by the sound of a child crying, seemingly coming from the attic. Remembering local legends about a young girl named Emily who had died in the house, Clara felt a chill but decided to investigate. She climbed to the attic, where the crying grew louder. In a corner, she saw a small, shadowy figure, a pale, tear-streaked girl. Clara called out, trying to comfort the child, but the girl's expression turned from fear to anger. The room's temperature dropped, and a fierce wind extinguished Clara's flashlight. In the darkness, an icy hand gripped her wrist. Panicked, Clara broke free and fled to her bedroom, spending the rest of the night in terror. The next morning, Clara packed her belongings and left the house, never to return. She moved into a small apartment in town, unable to shake the feeling that something terrible had happened in the Waverly house. Years later, during the house's demolition, workers found a hidden room in the attic containing the skeletal remains of a child and a diary. The diary revealed that Emily had been locked in the room by her deranged father, dying of starvation and despair. This discovery confirmed the town's suspicions and gave Clara a sense of closure, but she never forgot the ghostly presence that had driven her away from the Waverly house.